All right, guys. Welcome to another episode of Beantown Banter and Bullshit. We're here tonight with my man, Mark Epstein, author of legendary Jack Foley's biography here, coming out soon. We want to shout out our sponsors, as always, Platt's Landscaping, South High Colonel. Also, we want to thank Emily's Interiors, Remodel Works, and Chuck Shern's Boxing. So without further ado, we worked through some issues here. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I believe we're back. Mark, are you with us?
Yes.
So now you should be able to turn your video on now. And we are good. Mark, welcome to the show, my friend.
Okay, can you see me?
I can see you. We can hear you. Everything is beautiful. Fantastic, my man. So just to give everybody a little bit of a background here.
And you can see me okay?
Yeah, we can see you. Everything's good.
Okay.
Everything's good. So
thanks.
Just a little background. Me and Mark belong to one of the same Worcester groups. It's like Worcester Past, Present, Future, or whatever. I think that's one that I first caught my eye. But as you guys know, every year I'm South High heavy. So one of my teachers back in the day was Jack Foley. Jack was just a legendary crusader, played for the Celtics, the Knicks, but as a man, I always looked up to him. And to this day, me and a bunch of my friends say it's one of the only classes we ever remember the content, because he really taught you life. The name of the class was law, but it could have been named life. So Mark, let's talk about the book. Let's talk about our friend here. What inspired you to write it?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. Going way back with Jack, I played for him for 4 years in his first job out of Holy Cross back in the mid-'60s, 66 to 70 when he went to trade. He had been out of Holy Cross about 4 or 5 years. And obviously everybody knew who he was. And the two of us, but other players on the team too, developed great relationships with him. He was an easy guy to really want to play for.
Oh, yeah.
If you had a problem playing for Jack Foley, you had a personality. You had a serious personality defect.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
Or you didn't like running. It was one of the two.
Yeah.
And I loved running. I didn't have a personality disorder. We just clicked. And we spent 4 years together there. But when I graduated from Worcester State and I played there, I played with him at Crompton Park again for a few summers. We were teammates. We spent a lot of time together. And then we had a long period of time where we didn't stay in touch. But we knew our friendship was like a brotherhood. So it was just a matter of reconnecting, which I did about a month before, about a year before he passed away. I spent a few hours with him and Gail Rainey, another former teacher at South High, who was his wife. And we sat and we looked at all his nature photos together. We never talked basketball. But our relationship in basketball was extremely, extremely close. He would drive me home after practice every day because we would stay sometimes as long as 10:30, 11 shooting around the gym every night for about 4 years. I was the last to leave. And as long as I was there, he wanted to stay. And as long as he was there, I was going to stay. So we just kept shooting and shooting and shooting for hours on end. And that was my big brother. Jack was my big brother. I had two. I had my brother Bobby, and everyone in my family knew it. And he took a liking to me, even though I drove him crazy because I followed him around the gym as a little 14, 15-year-old kid, pumping him with every basketball question I could think of during the day. And he loved it. He didn't mind. I thought he was going to get tired and send me on my way. It was the opposite. We got closer. Yeah. And after the Clompton Park years, when we went our own way, it was unfortunate. We had a little disagreement, egos clashing at the time. I was playing competitively. He was still a great player. And we had a little different viewpoint on our teams after a few years, what we wanted to do to improve it. And, I handled it wrong. And so I always knew, though, I followed him closely. I knew everything he was doing. And from when I interviewed his sons for this book, Louis, and Herb, they told me they knew everything that I was doing after I moved away to South Carolina and coaching. And Jack talked often about me. And I had a hard time talking about Jack. I had a hard time. But the reason that it was hard for me is I never knew how to just pick up the phone and say, I'm coming over for a beer.
Yeah.
I wanted to, and I wasn't mature enough to handle the thought that he wanted to let bygones be bygones, which I know he did. And it was foolish for me to think he didn't. Right. And that's part of how this all came about. But once I walked into his house, I got to his house on that day. It's about April 15th of 2019. He passed away 29th of November on 2020. It's about 15 months, 18 months, and he was struggling. When I got to his house, Mike, the first thing he said when he opened the door, and he knew I was, he was waiting for me because I set it up with a mutual friend of ours who was living in Barry. I said, hey, finally, I just got tired of thinking about it. I had been thinking about it for too long. It was driving me crazy.
Yeah.
I said, okay, you know Jack out in Barry, huh? You ask him if Mark Epstein can come over the next time I'm in Worcester. I live in South Carolina now, and say hello to him. And within 5 minutes, he got back to me and he said he wants to see you. And so we made it happen. I'm walking up the driveway, and he opens up the big door, his door to his red house. And he looks at me and says, we had fun, didn't we? And we gave each other a hug. And it was as if the time had never, as if there was no time that ever came between our last visits. It was really supernatural for both of us. And we just sat down and we just started talking again. And our relationship was based around basketball, like I'm sure a lot of his other players over the years for all the teams he coached at South High, the men's and the women's.
Yep.
And, out in Quabbin, Worcester Industrial Technical Institute, Whitty, for a couple of years. Yep. I'm sure they developed relationships with him through basketball like I did. Ours was a little bit, I think, I'm not saying I had the best, I was closer to him than any player he ever had. That would be like saying that you've got 5 children and, that one's your favorite. They all think you're your favorite.
Right.
But with Jack, we all thought we were his favorite. When I did all the interviews, we all said the same thing. Yeah. We were his favorite. And I was laughing. Yeah. I'm saying, this is great. That's the perfect world. But Jack, in a way, was the perfect world.
Really?
You know, and we really cared about each other. In my visits to his house when I was playing with him and for him, and his family, I remember when he adopted his 5 children, the 3 boys, rather, the week he adopted them, they came down to Crompton Park, and for the next 2 months, we were hanging out after games. They remembered that.
Wow.
I mean, I was blown away. They said, "We know who you are."
Wow.
And our dad was so excited when you wrote your first book a couple of years ago, even before I visited. So I knew he was talking about me. And I was very, very, very disappointed in myself. I still am. And, you know, I sat back, and after he passed away, I was involved with a lot of phone calls from a lot of the higher level basketball names and getting phone calls from them when he did pass, the Togo Palazzis and the George Blaney's calling. We called each other and whatnot. And it was like I was back again within family type of a relationship like we were.
Yeah.
Like I still looked at him during that visit as my big brother.
Yeah.
You know, the feeling hadn't changed. And it was, I thought maybe it would be awkward, but it was the complete opposite. But that's because of him, though. He wanted it, I wanted it, and it happened. It should never, 100% my fault that it didn't happen 25 years earlier. And when I sat back after he died, I wanted to write a second book. And I got to the first book. They call me Pathfinder, Education, Basketball, Equality. And I'm writing that. And I get to the trade years of playing basketball. And I'm writing a couple paragraphs. I'm like, a couple paragraphs on Jack? I'm saying to myself, you gotta be kidding me. I'm saying to myself, I could write a whole book. So when he passed, I was examining ideas on what to write. And I'm not going to go through the whole list with you, but George Blaney, the former Holy Cross basketball coach who was a teammate of Jack's, okay, for 2 seasons at the Holy Cross. What's that?
He coached Seton Hall too, didn't he?
He sure did. 3 seasons there.
Yep.
And then 11, and then 13 years at UConn with Jim Calhoun as an assistant.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
So he said to me, hey, because he read my first book and he says, he said, Mark, you did a great job. What are you going to write for a second one? And I started laughing. I said, how do you know I'm going to write one? He said, because I could tell you were pretty good. So I said, I haven't thought about it yet, Coach. And he says, I got a good idea for you. He said, you should do one on Jack the Shot. Now, that's one of the few times just now that I ever called him Jack the Shot, by the way.
Yeah. To
you, just a second.
Yeah.
Never. I always thought it was a little bit of a disrespect when I heard people call him Jack the Shot. I avoided it at all costs.
Yeah.
I referred to him as Jack the Shot in the book all the way through, but when I talk about him, it's Jack. It's Coach Foley.
Yeah.
It's Coach Foley. It's Jack once in a while when we were hanging out a lot.
Yeah.
But I never called him the Shot. I just didn't like it when people did. But that was because I was a little protective. I was his little brother, remember?
Yeah.
And it was like, if I thought someone was going to be a little disrespectful to him, I was going to, I wasn't going to be thrilled about it. So I thought about it for a long time, 1.5 years. Okay, I want to write a second book. And I'm thinking, okay, Jack is certainly one of the 5 choices I'm thinking of. I told Gail I was thinking of it. She said, that would be awesome. I'd help you in any way you need it. She's been unbelievable. Her and Frank have been. her and Frank Foley, Jack's brother, unbelievable. It's a cooperation between a few of us.
Yep.
You know, I did not pull this off by myself. Maybe the writing, but look, without Frank and Gail, this does not happen. It flat out does not happen. So I had, so it was like, it's authorized by the families. And I was lucky in that way because they wanted it too. And they trusted me, and Frank knew what my relationship was like with Jack back in the day. He recalled it clearly, not just as a player. He knew that he was working at our store, Charlie Surplus, that I was playing with him at Crompton Park, that I was spending time after practice with him every day for 4 years until sometimes 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I mean, he knew all that. And he thought I was a perfect fit because he remembered how avid a basketball junkie I was. And he knew I'd be fair. Plus, he knew I loved him.
Yeah.
I mean, that never changed. That never changed. That never changed.
Yeah.
A single bit. And finally, the only thing holding me up making the decision earlier was the Worcester Central Mass market is a small market.
Yeah.
And I wanted a little more of a national audience on a second book. And I just started thinking, okay, so these are your choices. You're going to do, like George Blaney called it, it's going to be a grand slam if you write it. He called me today, and he remembered saying that. George Blaney did.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go to a national audience and lose the passion that I had for this man that I know the story of, and I've got support from the family to pull it off. And I said, okay, if I don't break even, this is still going to be an unbelievable contribution to the history of Central Massachusetts basketball and to a man who is so deserving.
I love
so
that.
I went with the lesser market, flat out, not lying here. No, I'm not trying to make myself into a martyr. It just, Gail knew that was my drawback, and she understood it. But once I went forward, okay, so it's not about money anymore, or I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
I would have gone bigger.
Yeah.
And, you know, I want to break even, sure. But regardless of how the finances work out on this, this is going to be the best book ever written in Central Mass about one of its native sons, and probably the best sports book that's been written this year in all New England. It's not even close.
I love
and
it.
We know that what's coming, Frank, myself, and Gail, and people that aren't sure what's coming, they're in for the shock of their life. You talk about an iconic, legendary book that is going to show the history of the sport in Central Mass from the 1940s on, and how it evolved into the game it is today, and during what we call the golden era of basketball in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Yeah. I cover the whole thing, all the high schools, all the colleges. It's a double biography with Jack the Shot and Togo Palazzi. It's going to be sensational. Over 50 people, big NBA stars were interviewed for this. The biggest of the biggest, Tom Sanders, Jim Calhoun, Jeff Twist, Boston Celtics, public relations, media relations, all endorsed it.
Nice.
Official endorsement by the Boston Celtics. That's huge.
Nice. Congratulations, my man. I know you worked hard on it. I know that. I mean, to put, what did you say, 90,000 words?
It's going to end up about 87, 88,000. Right now it's about 83, 84, and I got to finish up a couple things.
Nice.
It's going to be a 300-page book. It's going to have 40, 50 photos of the 14 trips that Gail and Jack drove to Alaska to sit and photograph wildlife. That's a big part of the book in the photo section.
The snake hunter.
The snake hunter. Yeah, that's what it is. And People didn't know he was spending his summers after he retired in Alaska, and he drove cross country 14 times, 14 summers. He had over 300,000 photos in his library, in slides, and she's pulling out about 15, 25 of the best ones, and they are unbelievable. So if you think you're reading a book on just basketball, I got news for you. It's Worcester history, it's Central Mass basketball history, it's every college in Central Mass, the background of it, and the history of each program, and all the high schools. Each high school has a little history. And the playgrounds, when I say Worcester history, the evolution of the playgrounds in Worcester from each playground on, from the time they broke dirt back on Providence Street, off of Providence Street.
I love it, man. Now, I have a mutual respect here because with this podcast, anybody can talk about the NFL, the NBA, and you're right. It's a small market if you're trying to really build something big. So I had to make a choice, and it came down to exactly what you said. My heart is with, the local, with South High, with where I went, and I commend that. That's, it's a tough decision. I think it's great because it really is. We have gold right in this city. We have gold, like the talent, the history. Obviously, Jack is a big piece of that. But there's so much here, and it seems like it gets a little bit overlooked. So I stuck hometown. I love it.
I was very involved with basketball. Anyone who knows me back in Worcester, throughout New England, they know that. The one thing that was always a concern to me, or not a concern, it wasn't. I just knew our traditions in Central Mass were deep when it came to basketball. And I also knew there was a slight disrespect from the Boston area. And in the back of my mind, here was a chance I could take and run with, and that is to save the history, share it, secure it, to let people look at it, learn from it. That's one thing today, our young people in sports, it's all travel teams, AAU, they have no idea who played before them and how good the players were. And this book is really going to show that. When I say there were over 50 people that were interviewed, they're literally, and some of the biggest names in the basketball world, you're going to see their memories of Jack and of Central Mass basketball, a combination of both, that are going to light a fire under a lot of people, and they're going to want to read it and learn more and pass it on. And we don't have to. We have our own history, and why not be proud of it? Why not save it?
Right. I agree.
And this book, out of respect to Jack, did more than just bring his name back. Oh, it definitely did that, and from the time he was born all the way till when he passed. It's the whole thing. But it's also the whole thing on Toga Plaza, and it's the whole thing on the evolution of the playgrounds in Worcester. It's the whole thing on every basketball gym in Worcester and of every high school and college that has ever fielded a team. Even the ones that aren't around anymore, like Sacred Heart, St. Stephen's, Classical Commerce, the whole history of those schools are all part of this book.
Love it, man. So I kind of did the same thing on my podcast too. We did, Diego McClain and Kareem Tatum, all the Holy Name kids from back then. I did a show with all of them on. I did a Holy Cross heavy show for Big Jim Miller, a friend of Jack Foley. So I had Lee Hall there. We had Gordy on. But the exactly what you're saying, to save these memories, to go back and let these kids know how we were doing back then and what was going on, how we built dynasties. And
it's really interesting you say that, Mike. One of the things in sports is everybody likes to think that their era was the best.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
I mean, like you couldn't play for, you could never play in today's game. I gotta be honest with you. The good players of yesteryear would excel just as well as the ones today.
Yep.
Actually, I've always thought they'd be better because they have a little more discipline and self-motivation, and they're better fundamentally sound. They're more fundamentally sound, is what I'm saying. I think it's a better era, the era that we came out of. That they don't. If you don't make this an interesting story, which I have, because I put in about 600-700 names from the Central Mass area in it. Everyone's in it. Everyone's in it. If you play basketball in Central Mass over the 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s, you're in the book.
Love it, man. Love it.
I mean, I took care of everyone I could possibly have remembered.
Phenomenal.
They're gonna go wild.
What is the title of the book?
The title of the book is Jack the Shot Foley, Remembering a Legend, with Togo Palazzi and Central Mass Basketball.
When will it be out officially?
Yeah, officially it's going to be out in the fall. I'm going to have probably a pre-sale in October. It's close to being ready. Yeah. I'm holding back. I want to get it started for sale at the beginning of a new basketball season.
Okay, and we'll get that link out there. Now, one thing that's interesting to me, you mentioned Jim Calhoun, obviously legendary UConn coach. There was a story that Jack had told everybody, I think every class, every player. It was his favorite story, basketball story. This is what he told us. That I think he was leading the nation in scoring or something at Holy Cross. And somehow, I think it was UConn that they played. And he said that they dogged him the first half. Like they just, dragged him down. They were talking junk to him. And he said something, or maybe, I don't even know what had happened. Maybe it was the next.
No, I know the story well. And I'm leaving you alone. So, no, I'm leaving you alone so you can go with it.
So I'm thinking, he said that something like he was leading them the next time he played them at halftime. Jack Foley, like 35, and whoever, UConn 31 or something. Those just makeshift numbers, but it was something like that. Is that in the book?
It's in the book.
Awesome.
Oh, it's in the book. Here, and you're right. Here's what happened. They went down and played UConn. And I'm not so sure he was dogged as much as he had a bad night.
Yeah.
But if he says he's dogged, he was dogged. I'm not going to dispute that. I wasn't there. Yeah. I was too young. I do know, though, that he went from scoring down there 1 point his senior year. One fact. You're right. They played UConn again. Now, a couple of his teammates have told me in the interviews that they did not think that he was out for revenge the second game. No, that was their opinions. They never talked to him about it because Jack wasn't an eye guy. He wasn't one to spend a lot of time talking about himself. That wasn't. He just didn't dig that.
Yeah.
And so, and I never talked to him about it. But from what I gather, I do know this. This is a fact. When they had their rematch at the end of the year, before they went to the NIT, he scored 39 points in the first half.
Yeah. Unreal.
Same guy guarding him.
And they
ended up with 56.
Unreal.
Total blow up.
Love that story.
It's an unbelievable story. Now, what's really intriguing to me is if someone told me that Jack talked about it, I wouldn't have believed that, but I believe you because I never heard him utter a whisper about himself. But there had to be something funny about it for him to tell a classroom of students he was probably making a joke about how bad he was the first night.
Also, I think he was trying to give us a lesson on heart. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
competitiveness. You know, he just taught the way he just taught. Like, he did speak a lot. I know he told us about his Alaskan trips, but it was always a lesson. You know, like I cut one of the best ones ever. He said he had 30 pairs of jeans, so he only had to do laundry once a month or something.
Right.
I'll always remember that, and I actually live by that. I got the same idea with socks. I got 100 pairs. So
Right.
I'm only gonna do.
Right. No, he was definitely, obviously, you had him in class, you know how funny he was. I don't have to explain that to you.
Oh my God.
He was a funny dude, man. I mean, he scammed me a couple times with snakes. I mean, he gets that. He got everyone, though.
Yep.
I mean, he got everyone. I mean, everyone has a snake story that he scammed them on.
Yep.
You know, he spooked them. He spooked me. He spooked me twice.
Yep.
The first time I was in total shock. Never forget it. Coming down from the locker room at Trey, my senior year, and the team is sitting in the bleachers, he's talking to him before practice, and I was the last one to join the group. So, anyway, as I'm walking down, he says, "Hey, Epi, can you do me a favor? Just go into the medicine chest and take a couple of the basketballs out for me." So, yeah, sure, you know. I bend over to pick up the basketballs, and there's two big boa constrictors looking at me. Now, I went stone, scared, stiff. I started screaming, came out of the gym and started running around, and he had everyone waiting for me for my reaction because he set it up with them.
Cool.
And told them what I was going to be doing, what he had in there instead of basketballs. I mean, another time I'm at his house and I'm staying over, and he tells me after a game at Crompton, "Hey, you know, I left the towel out for you, and I'm ready to shower, step in the bathtub, and obviously, you know, there are 5 snakes and alligators all running around in there." And he says, "Don't worry about it. Most times they stay there all night. Very, very few." So the rest of the night, I'm sitting up in bed waiting for one to sneak through underneath the door. I'm like, I was petrified.
Oh my God. Yeah,
I mean, but he was great. He was great.
He also told us, you know, speaking on pets, that he had a pet pig. His daughter had a pig.
Yeah, he had a pet pig.
I mean, it was like, I don't know, it was like a circus.
He had a pet pig.
Yep. Unreal.
Yeah. It got sick.
Oh.
Or got hurt.
Oh,
yeah. No, there's more to that story, and I can't really tell you here.
Yep.
But his brother Frank told me the rest of it. Oh, absolutely, he had a pet pig.
Unreal.
I mean, now the stories that his brother shared with me around the book, and he could never have told any of these in class. They're unbelievably funny. I told one to George Blaney today, and I swear to God, he told me he hadn't laughed so hard in a long time. And here's the guy that spent 3 years playing with him.
Awesome.
He did not know that.
Really?
It is unbelievable.
Good old Jack.
Frank's wife wasn't sure that I should put it in the book, but I didn't care. It's too good.
Legendary story that he told us. His time with, I believe it was with the Knicks, and he never played. He never touched the floor, he said. So he stopped wearing his clothes under his warm-up. And he got called to play during the game, and he had to run to the locker room and put his uniform on. I
had actually heard that.
Yeah,
that actually is true, because if he said it again, then I know that's a fact.
Yeah. A few of the guys I talked to today as a coach, they said the funniest story they have, his coaching method. Mike Bradley, when South High played that team. Now,
sure.
Jack was about as real as you could get.
Yeah.
He was going to tell you the truth. And in the locker room, and before the game, he said, "Now listen, we're not going to win this game, but I want your best effort. Just try your hardest or whatever." I think they had 8 guys at the time, but they were preparing for Mike Bradley. So to prepare for Mike Bradley, he put a chair on the court and made them jump off the chair to try to block the shots to emulate Bradley.
When he was coaching the trade, we played against Mike Bradley's father, Dave Bradley. 6'10" kid went to Fairfield. And what he did was he had me stand under the basket as the center with a broom.
Yep.
I was the center on the second team, and I had a broom in my hand the whole practice.
Wow. That works. I mean, crazy. But so your career, you played at Holy Cross.
No, I played at Worcester State.
Oh, Worcester State, okay. What was your career?
My career, unfortunately, it took my body a long time to catch up with how badly I wanted to be a good player. And so I didn't get a lot of playing time at Trade, nor my first few years at Worcester State. But the time I got out of Worcester State, and one of the things that Jack and myself talked about was how far my game came from being a seldom used player to where, I had the same drive that he did. He took it a lot further, but I wasn't ready to stop at any time until I got as much out of myself as I could. And by the time I stopped, I can't say I paid everyone back, but a couple of people. And, and one of the things we talked about was he said, you went from I couldn't play because you were so small and skinny to when you were through, you could play with anyone in Worcester. And I felt that way.
Nice.
Yeah, and so, I came full circle. I loved it, made a lot of friends. My whole life was involved in the game. If I wasn't playing, I was either actively putting teams together at Crompton, scouting, coaching, playing as long as I could. I loved it. That's one thing when I look back on, if there's anyone out there who just loves something so much that they don't want to give it up, don't give it up. I mean, just flat out, don't give it up.
Yeah, Tom Brady.
I wasn't ready to give up the ball until I was forced to. And, I'm thankful that I had that attitude because the memories of the Jack Foleys and the George Blaney's and so many of my other friends that
nice, man. Good. I love it. I can totally see that your heart is into this book, so I really can't wait to read it.
It's a passion in me. I mean,
I can see it.
The sport, I don't think there's anyone in Central Mass. I will say this, maybe I wasn't as good as I wanted to be when I was younger until I got a little older and had to wait. But there was no one in Central Mass that ever walked in that part of the state that knew the game better than I did.
I respect it.
There was no one with my passion for learning and devoting the amount of hours I put in to really being able to work at a Bill Russell basketball fantasy camp in Vegas and sit and have dinner with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Julius and Bill, Coach Russell, over a week period several times.
Wow.
And be able to share the same conversation and join in with them to where
incredible.
We could exchange ideas and stories differently, but there was never a question in their minds when camp ended, where how deep my knowledge of the sport was. There was no question. And I stayed in touch with Sam Jones.
The
You know,
Bob Cousy?
a little bit with Coach Cousy. I can't say a whole lot. We've talked about 4 times during this book.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows about it. When I interviewed Dr. Fauci for this book through Zoom, like I am with you, he talked a lot about Coos, his former hero from his Holy Cross days when he attended, and Coach Cousy was playing for the Celtics. So he talked a lot about him, and we made sure he got the video on it. It meant a lot to him. The same with Togo. He brought back a lot of Worcester history and Holy Cross history. He graduated the same year as Jack. So he never missed a game at the Worcester Auditorium. So he has some unbelievable memories of the whole era.
Legend for the Marlboro Shamrocks too, right?
What's that?
Yeah, Togo played for the Marlboro Shamrocks, so he was a legend there, wasn't he?
He was out in Marlboro. The Marlboro Shamrocks, if I'm not mistaken, was a football team.
Yeah.
Togo played for the Celtics and the Syracuse Nationals.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Okay, so you're right. Yeah, okay, so I think that's what you got it mixed up a little bit. But he played for the Syracuse Nationals and the Celtics for over a 6-year period, and then was a player coach for Scranton, Pennsylvania, in the old Eastern League. That was very, very good. And he did that for a couple of years after he got out. I don't know how many people even realize that. But their whole histories come back, and I know I talk to Togo once a week. So when we got ready for this book, and I made him a big part of it, I mean, he knew, he knows me personally inside out, and he knows my background and knowledge, and he was willing. He really opened up to me, and it was great. It was great. I'm honored. I was honored, but I felt that way my whole life, that I was in the right place at the right time. My friends, my family business, my drive, and my love for the sport. It was 7 days a week obsession, which screwed me up. So I'm, it's not almost a brag session here. It really, really set me back, where my immaturity was just killing me, because here's a kid who, as junior, senior high school, hardly getting in, and I think I'm going to play in the NBA for 15 years. And because of that, I think my drive was so great. It hurt me in a couple of marriages before I moved away. So I got to be honest with you, for someone that's sitting here saying, oh, he's doing all this bragging about himself. Well, actually, it cost me a lot, and I had to come face to face with it. So, yeah, I still love it, but fortunately, I have it in its proper perspective now. And this book has been great at allowing me to feel that love back again in my heart for the sport that for 60 years was all like, 55 years was all I really lived for. And it went beyond being a player. And the one thing that triggered my deep love for Jack, okay, and it has to do with what you're asking me a little bit. I spent so many waking hours over my life involved with the sport and players. There is nothing that turns me up more than listening to someone tell me and replay their career to me as how good they were and what they did and how. Look, when you go to a camp like Russell and you sit with the 11 players at a dining room table that were in the top 75 in the NBA 75-year history. 11 of them. That's for a week, and you don't hear a single word out of their mouth about what they did. What makes you think what you've done is so interesting?
Right.
I mean, and that is the way Jack was.
Yep.
You could have fun. He wanted to have fun. I think he was always almost a little embarrassed that people knew him as the Shot. He would never be rude to anyone, but I really believe in my heart, if you had asked him, he would have shut that nickname down a long time earlier. But that's only a feeling I have. Right. I can't say that for sure because I never wanted to ask him. I know towards the end when people say, "Oh, you're the Shot," his first thing was, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Towards the end of his coaching career, he was still draining threes. But he could still shoot. Where do you think that nickname came from? Well,
it came from, there are two places it came from. And I wrote it twice in different places in the book. And today I actually updated it. Very interesting you asked that.
He had a unique shot.
John Connors, his teammate at Assumption Prep in Holy Cross, is convinced when he was a sophomore, early on his sophomore year when he started playing in Assumption Prep, the students that sat up in the balcony on the track because he shot with such long range called him the Shot. Every time he touched it, they called it the Shot. It's the Shot.
Yeah.
No, I went with that, but I think there's another case where he was playing in the Western Mass State Championship semifinals against Holyoke Catholic, and he made 7 shots in a row in the second half. And on the 7th one, he was falling out of bounds onto the street by the door at Springfield College. He lost his balance, and the shot that he took hit the side of the backboard on such a crazy angle that it ricocheted through the basket off of the backboard, and he never saw it. And everyone just basically almost stopped playing, like, what in the world is that? No, I've heard that from a couple people. Well, number one, his assistant coach at the time, Don Lemenger, my next door neighbor, and the AD at Trade. That was, and Jack, in one of the stories that I've been given the scrapbooks by the family, claims that's where it came from. I think it's a combination of those two, though. I think John might be right. Yeah. And when he was 14, 15 years old, 16, and he was throwing them in from 28, 30 feet, I think it's like, it was feed the weed, went shoot. Yeah. That was the rallying cry of the student body there at the time.
I mean, everybody in Worcester knows Jack the Shot. You know what I mean?
And I'm honored. And again, I felt a little funny when you asked me about playing. Playing for me was a lot different than others. Playing for me meant being around my friends and, being in the gym and being able to dribble a basketball around and practicing to get better. It wasn't about, I was satisfied knowing as long as I kept practicing, I had a chance to get better every day. And I didn't care how long it was going to take. I mean, and that, unfortunately, it took until I was 20, 21, 22. And then, if those that were playing against me stopped and they hadn't seen me in a while, they were in for a little surprise. Because I was going to get him back. I was going, payback was going to be hell. And a lot of the guys that were left with me at Worcester State kind of saw how much I had quickly advanced. And still, would have loved to have been better. But the relationships, friends, the experiences I had, and the memories, it all doesn't matter now. None of it matters. It's what you learned from the game, how it set you up for life. And look what it did for Jack. It's the same thing. Yeah. He stopped playing. He thought he was a failure in the NBA. He really did. Yeah. He thought he was a public failure and was ashamed of himself. That's in the book. That's common knowledge.
Yeah.
And was he a failure? Heck no.
Yeah,
no. He still goes down. He still goes down as one of the greatest shooters who ever lived.
Yeah, no doubt.
I don't care how few times he played on national TV.
Right. Yeah, he made it.
Anyone that made it big and stayed involved as opponents, coaches, and teammates at a real high level, they'll tell you flat out, there was no one better than him.
Yeah, yeah.
So for him to say, for him to think that way, because he didn't have the marquee legacy behind him, because his career was short, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to take out a secret from this book. Okay, and I've given a few things away already. This is a big one. Okay, this is really a big one. George Blaney and several others. And George played 2 years in the NBA, by the way.
Yep.
Okay, New York Knicks and Philadelphia 76ers. Johnny Egan, huge star, Providence College, 14 seasons in the NBA, 4 as the head coach of the Houston Rockets with Calvin Murphy and Rudy Tomjanovich. Spoke to them in length. Okay? They say if Foley stayed with it, eventually he would have made it. Only 12 players on the team.
Yep.
And he would have averaged around 15 a game by the time he finally found the right place and fit for him, which obviously didn't happen in Boston. It wasn't going to happen in Boston. Yeah, no. Red Auerbach actually did the Celtics a disservice and Jack Foley a disservice by drafting him in the second round. They had no need for his skills at that position. Yep. None. They had Frank Ramsey, John Havlicek, Sam Jones. Where was he going to get playing time? They'd already won 5 or 6 championships in a row. That was a throwaway draft. Come on. Yeah. So he got treated that way. He wasn't even told when he got cut or traded or sold, quote unquote, to the Knicks by Red Auerbach. He found out by the manager. So when he went to New York that summer, after he played for them for half the year, sitting on the bench, like you said, yep. With his street clothes underneath his warm-ups. Yeah, and I did know that. Yep. He went back to New York for their summer camp that summer to work a New York City, New York Knicks cooperative summer camp for youth. He came back from New York, told his brother, I'm done. This lifestyle isn't for me. There you go. That's why he stopped playing in the NBA. Yep. The Knicks wanted him back for their training camp, and he chose not to go back. No, that's never come up before.
I believe it.
And if you think about his lifestyle, okay, the unlaced boots, the dungarees, the flannel shirt, standing at half court, throwing in 3 after 3, hunting in the woods late at night when he was supposed to be policing in his police uniform. Yep. Look, if you think about that, who walked away from what? He walked away.
Yeah. Yep.
It wasn't for him. it left a bad taste in his mouth when Red did that to him.
I can see why. I mean, imagine how big of a deal that it happens today still, but it's not right. No way.
You know, I mean, everybody kissed Red's fanny.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, he won 9 championships, and Red Auerbach is God. He screwed Jack Foley. He screwed Jack Foley.
I believe it.
Really, 2 or 3 different ways, flat out.
Yeah.
And I actually say it in the book, and I'll say it right to you. I'll say it in any interview I'm ever given. And if people get uncomfortable because of that, because they thought this guy was God, they screwed my buddy.
I'll tell you, I know, I mean, to walk away, something bad had to happen. You know what I mean? Or,
if he wouldn't have walked away if the ABA that started in 67, started in 64, 63, you know, but once you're out 5 years, you know, the one thing that Jack drove his shot, okay, what drove his shot was his legs. His ability to jump was phenomenal.
yeah.
Not a strong guy, but just could jump to the moon.
Yeah.
That's why he led his team in rebounding at Holy Cross 3 straight years, which a lot of people don't realize. With over 9 rebounds a game, the guy could jump to the moon. He wasn't out toughing people. He could just get over you.
Yeah.
And he pulled me aside my freshman year, and he said to me, Mark, you know what leaves you first when you stop playing? So I knew in 67, he was the ABA, started the ABA with the 3-point shot. 62, he graduated. You say, well, 5 years. But in his opinion, what left him before anything was his legs. And he told me that. He says, as soon as you're not playing every day, working out hard with your own conditioning drill, the first thing that goes is your ability to jump. And if he couldn't jump, okay, the way he did when he was at Holy Cross, he was going to lose a lot of his leverage. Because when I became his teammate at Compton Park, it was almost, he no longer was getting up on his jump shot. He was almost, I don't want to say it was he still, his arms were still way over his head, okay? The follow through was the same, his motion was the same, but it was almost where he was getting off the ground 4 to 6 inches and making it almost like a push shot. You still couldn't block it, and he was still getting it off, but he wasn't the jumping Jack Foley anymore.
So when I mentioned earlier that he was still draining threes when he was towards the end of his coaching career, he wouldn't even no jump.
No jump. No. And yeah, see, that's how he was transforming later on. And that's a great point, Mike.
Yeah.
So you saw it, exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, when he was 37, 38, 39, he really wasn't jumping anymore on his shot either. A little bit, though. Still a little bit. But he was not rebounding any. He definitely wasn't the rebounder that he was at Holy Cross. Right. He wasn't going over anyone.
Yep. Man, I mentioned in one of my early podcasts, I wish he would have been one of the first people that I would have gotten on, because he really, the guy's life was amazing. He told one time as a policeman, he said his van broke down, so he walked from Barry to South High.
That's right.
Unreal.
Many times he couldn't afford it. He couldn't afford to repair his car.
Yep. The van
happened several times, Mike.
Unreal. That's
unbelievable. It's unbelievable. People they think, no. He actually would hitchhike and keep walking until someone picked him up. And if they pick him up, he'd just walk all the way.
Yep. Amazing. Imagine what time you got to leave to make it from Barry to South High.
He didn't work all night. And he didn't sleep all night because he was out. He was a police officer.
Right. I mean,
So we'd go home, make breakfast for his kids, get in the car, and be the first one at school. How about that one?
yep. Unreal.
Unbelievable.
They don't make them like that anymore.
No, they don't make them like that anymore. And that's why this book is so important to keep such a special person's memory and legacy alive.
Yep.
I mean, goodness gracious, shame. If I did have the opportunity and know how to do this. Shame on me if I chose not to.
Right, right.
I would not have ever been able to live with myself, Mike.
I love it. I love it, man. I feel the same. I felt the same about about this podcast right here that we're doing, and Big Jim Miller. You know, we have the ability to have these memories saved and live forever. Why not do it? You know what I mean? It's and it's a tribute to them. I mean.
Oh, it really is. I tell you who else it's a tribute to, though, and I really am sincere because I'm not sure I emphasize this enough. Frank Foley and Gail Rainey, brother and widow. Oh my God, you know, Gail's worked so hard. Even while we've been talking, she's been sending me about 50, 60 photos to look over, and she's, you know, this has been a brutal loss for her.
Yeah.
I mean, this was everything to her.
Yeah.
Jack was everything. I mean, she was a great wife. You know, I mean, you know, you come in to a marriage, and I know I had to experience it with older steps. You know, that's not easy.
Yeah.
So I don't know the whole history there, but I know my history, and I don't like reliving it. You know, she went through a lot.
Yep.
I mean, seriously. A great lady, big heart. I felt so bad for her several times because the grieving, maybe this has been good for her a little bit too as a distraction. I hope. I never talked about it with her. I know for Frank, he's loving it. His stories, you know, we talk maybe every day. There'll be a question I have, and he's never a quick answer. Yeah. But I'm a talker, and I love Frank's stories. And I've had a lot of fun with him doing this. You know, he a couple of times he's left me rolling on the floor. But a great guy, and his wife Rose, both of them together have really been instrumental in this. And I haven't needed Holy Cross much. I've tried to reach out to them many times. Disappointed. I don't want to go any further than that.
Yeah, you know that I was going to say something in the middle of this. I think he was very underrated and overlooked by them, by Holy Cross.
He had some feelings, you know, and that he's not here to speak on them, so I can't. David, I will say this, but it's in the book. There are 4 great All-Americans in the history of that program.
Yeah.
I mean, great. I'm talking APUPI. Throw away the look, the Catholic Digest, the academic All-Americans, the honorable mentions. They don't mean anything to me. I'm not going to cover and say they were All-Americans. They had great careers, but they were not All-Americans.
Yeah.
There were 5 actually. The big guy that played with Cousy on that 47 team.
Tommy Heinsohn? Was he?
No, it wasn't Heinsohn. No, Heinsohn's one of them.
Yeah.
Cousy, Pelosi, and Jack. Yeah. And there was another one. That's my fault. I just went blank. But I mentioned him a few times in the story. Out of those 4 All-Americans that I named were APUPI. Jack is a consensus. Only 10.
Really?
Per year, yeah. Second team UPI, 13 AP, and all the others were all first team. They ended up as a consensus second team. Yeah, and tremendous accomplishment. But out of those 4, Togo, Jack, Cruz, Hudson. Who do you think? Well, this was my opinion, though. I mean, I poured a lot of hours into this story.
Yeah.
So I was entitled to a couple of opinions in this book, and this is one of the big ones I made. I will say to my dying day, now that I've analyzed everything as closely as I have, Jack Foley had the greatest career in the history of Holy Cross basketball. Period. End of story. Second, I'd go Togo. Third, Cruz. Fourth, Heinsohn. All great. All, 3 out of those 4 after Jack had much better careers in the NBA. Obviously, Cruz and Heinsohn are iconic careers. At Holy Cross, nobody did more over a 3-year period with less. Maybe physically, maybe ability-wise even, but certainly with teammates. And brought them 3 straight years to the heights that he did, to average 29 for his career and almost 10 rebounds. Nobody, none of those 3 other guys. They all had great careers. They all deserved to be All-Americans, and they were very successful there. The most successful, Jack the Shot Foley.
Love it. Love it.
And so Holy Cross can say whatever they want about the others that they like connecting with.
Right.
And being associated with. I'm going with my guy. And his numbers back it up, not just in points, but in wins and rankings and success in postseason tournament play.
Love it, man. Love it. I'll tell you that I don't think I've ever heard not one negative word about the man. Not even, maybe some kids back in the day that get thrown out of the class, maybe, I don't know, but not even then. The man was...
And I'm not so sure how excited Holy Cross is when I'm doing this.
I don't know.
But you know something? But, I hope they are. And I have no reason to say that, except that a little disappointing in the lack of cooperation up to this point.
Yeah.
I hope it changes. We didn't need it. We didn't need it. It would have been nice to have it.
Right.
I know what Mr. Perry is 100% behind it. The former AD. No question. I've spoken to him 3 times. Loves it. Father Markey had a beautiful conversation with him. He's behind it. I know those folks are.
Yeah.
Hey, you can't make everybody happy.
That's right. That's right. But you make the right people happy. That's it.
I really did, though. Yeah, for sure. No, I feel that way.
Yeah.
And we didn't do anything in spite. We went to them and said, this is what we're doing before it even started. Right up front. This is what I'm going to do. I want you to know, I don't want you to hear from anyone else. The Worcester paper, Telegram, tremendous already. Huge article. A couple of Sundays ago on the front page of their sports section.
Yep.
Jen Tolland couldn't be better. And the entire paper over my lifetime with the things that my dad, Charlie Epstein, and myself did at Charlie Surplus, they've always supported us. And I think this is just another cause that they feel strongly about. We're keeping the history of a very important part of the Worcester culture and the Central Mass culture, and that is basketball. And we're restoring it, and we're going to save it, and we're going to learn from it. And how can you not like that, though?
I love it.
Who cares who writes it? Yeah. I don't have to be a superstar, and I didn't have to go to Holy Cross.
Right. Love it, man. Love it. I always love the underdogs. That's what we're all about.
I am doing this.
Yep. Love it. Mark, this has been a great combo, my man. We can do it again and add more if you want.
I would love it when it breaks. I'm going to hold you to it. No, you did a great job. You had a really better handle on the sport than I expected. Okay, not that I was. yeah, I just didn't know what to expect, Mike, because I have such a high level of love for it and understanding. Sometimes I'm not sure others are at that place. Tell you what, you did a heck of a job, my man. You know the game real well.
I appreciate that. I tell you, I've been looking at you posting in that group for a while now when you first started it and everything. I'm like, man, what a great idea. Because I'm telling you, before even this all came about, the most interesting man I've ever met in my entire life.
Oh, yeah.
Everything.
I guess the last thing I'm going to say is I've been married now for 26 years. I played marriage, down here. And my wife, when she read my first book or edited it even a little bit, I have some great professional editors, though, that are going to be going through this in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's going. And, they put a lot of time and effort into it. I put a lot of money into the editing part. So it's professional. There's no gray area. But she asked me a question. She said, I thought I knew you really well. I never heard you talk much about Jack the Shot Foley. But you know why? It hurt.
Yeah.
I couldn't say his name. For a long time, I knew that I let him down, and I didn't know how to man up to it or even think that there was anything there to begin with on his part, because I don't think there was. And it hurt me deeply. So I thought about him all the time. It wasn't fun. It was not fun. I didn't look at him as a celebrity now.
Right.
This was like a big brother to me, and I was without him for a long time. So why would I want to talk about him?
Right.
It was bringing back a deep hurt that I had. That I even now, I'm not even pretending. It's like, hey man, it just wasn't. It wasn't. It's not how I expected it.
Yep.
I thought we would always stay tight, and when we weren't for those years, but we were. I just didn't know it.
Yep.
I just didn't know it, man. I wish I did. Sugar.
Yeah. Well, you got to him before he passed. That's a good thing.
No, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah. I should have done better though. Hey,
he's doing it right now. You're making it happen right now. He's looking down on this book. Believe that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
You know it, Mr. Foley. And for the final thing that I'll say about him, that man, not one time in his life was ever walked through South High hallways without chalk all over him. He had chalk everywhere, all over his jeans, his shirt, everywhere. You ask anybody, and that is one of the things that anybody will say. He had unreal.
And the last thing I'll say, we could go out and spend 4 to 6 hours together, and he never would talk about himself.
I believe it.
Unless I asked him questions, he would answer my questions.
Yep.
He never wanted to leave a question unanswered, but he never initiated a sentence that started with I in my presence since the day I met him.
Well, Jack.
And he had it all to start with I.
Well, I'll tell you.
Because if he did, I would have run from it after a while. I know who I am.
Yep.
I have too many friends that played and accomplished great things in the game. And unfortunately, we can sit down and not even bring that up. And that's why we're friends. So I know that part of it is really important to me, that he didn't do that.
I get it. I mean, I think everybody that's ever met him has learned something from the man. How about we?
Always.
Yeah. I mean, undisputed. My last year at South High, I had to take, I think 2 classes. I took auto, and I said, give me whatever class Mr. Foley's doing. So I had law.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yep. I don't even think I needed the credit, but to be in the school, I think I needed 2 classes, and that was it. But
wow.
It didn't, like I said, I mentioned in one of my posts today, it didn't matter what the class is named. He taught law. I think he taught some history and other things. And
he brought a snake, and he bring a snake every now and then with him.
Oh yeah, unbelievable, man. Unreal.
Yeah. The first time he pulled out a snake out of his pocket in 5th grade at Belmont School with the girl sitting next to him in the middle of class. He says, "Look what I got."
Unreal. I believe it, man.
Yeah, that's what he did.
Yep.
He had a little 4 or 5 foot little snake. He pulled it out. She went nuts.
Of course. Belmont Street, I love that area. I come from Adams Street. I grew up there.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yep. Well,
hey, this was great. How can I get the video? How am I going to be able to get
it to you? We post it on the YouTube channel. I'll send you the link directly to it when we post it up. Hey, everybody, Shamrock Sports 508.com. It'll be up on there as well. And make sure, as soon as you get the link, when the book comes out, send it to me. I'll blast it all over my site. We'll get it out there. I mean,
hey, thanks.
I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to it. Because there's a lot. I mean, I know like 10 solid stories about him, and I'm sure there's more to learn in your book.
Oh, man, you're going to be blown away. You are going to be blown away.
I believe it.
Everyone is, though.
Oh,
everyone is.
Correction, through the show, I mentioned the Marlboro Shamrocks. It was Dave Palazzi that played.
Oh, yeah, he did play for the. Hey, actually, no, he did play. I remember that name. Yeah. I think the guy went to UMass.
I know he was a quarterback, I believe.
He was a quarterback.
Yeah.
Dave Palazzi was a quarterback.
Yep. See,
that's right.
Yep. All my knowledge, I told everybody I peaked athletically when I was 12. So I read the sports page from 12 till existence. So I know all these names from way back, But Dave Palazzi, Togo was always in the Nick Manzello. That end of the year piece. That's how I remember, all the Holy Cross stuff back then. But
yeah.
Mark, phenomenal conversation, my man. We'll definitely do it again soon. In memory of our buddy.
Oh, great, Mike. You are really good at this. You are terrific, and thank you for having me. It's an honor, and I'm humbled, and I'm glad I was able to represent, hopefully, the Foley family really well today. Gail and Frank and Rose.
We do. I appreciate that.
And his 3 boys.
Yep. Love it, man. We'll get them out there again. Every year, I throw one post out there like, man, nobody knows about Jack the Shot. I mean, just, the funny stories. But,
hey, I got to ask you. Now, I couldn't see myself on this podcast. You see it on your end, don't you?
Yep. Yeah, yep, you're on.
I did something wrong. I'm not real good with technology. Hey, buddy, I'll let you go, baby. Later.
Thank you, my man. We'll talk.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.